ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानं ज्ञानशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। Today we're going to read chapter 3, verse 13 of Bhagavad Gita. Yajñashistashina santo muchyante sarvakikshivaihi bhunjate te tvagham papa ye pachantyatmakaranat. Word by word translation. Yajñashista, food taking after performance of yaga. Ashinaha, eaters. Santaha, the devotees. Muchyante, get relief from. Sarva, all kinds of. Kilvishayihi, sins. Bhunjate, enjoy. Te, they. Tu, but. Agham, grievous sins. Papaha, sinners. Ye, those. Pachanti, prepare food. Atmakaranat, for sense enjoyment. Translation. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is suffered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. In this verse, God Himself is explaining that if you just eat food just for your own enjoyment, then that is sinful. It's considered sinful activity. So this probably will is very confusing to most people, because they will say, how can it be sinful just to eat something? I'm just eating because I need to eat. It's for my pleasure. I need to maintain my body. So how can this be sinful? And this is, I believe, one of the core misunderstandings of Western culture, and what the definition of the word sin is for a person in the West. And Krishna here, he's really clear. He says, if you just eat this food for your own sense enjoyment, that's sin. And the word is used, papaha, sinners, for sense enjoyment. Prepare food for sense enjoyment. So it is very important that when you practice any spiritual path, you define this word sin very clearly, because this is what's going to limit what you can do or what you can't do, and it will guide you in the proper direction. Because if you are committing sins over and over again, then there's no question of your getting relief, getting liberation, or escaping this material world, or achieving any kind of happiness. Because we know if someone is a thief or a sinner, the pressure or the weight in the heart from committing sins will always be there. So there's no sense of happiness for someone who's stealing. They're always in anxiety, they're always suffering. So how is it that Krishna says here that devotees who offer food in sacrifice, then they get rid of so many sins? Well, first of all, in food, when we eat food, just the fact of taking a plant, killing a plant, or worse for most Westerners, killing an animal, a cow or chicken or whatever, the act of killing an animal for my own pleasure it is considered sinful. And the fact is that we cannot create life as much as technology is advanced today. We can create microcomputers or whatever, but we cannot create life. So we are, it's not like I can pay back that life that I take. When we take a life, even if it's for eating, that's still karma. And this will create this reaction that if I kill, then I should be killed. The only way, the only solution to get out of this cycle of sinful activity of killing others and hurting others, etc., is first of all to realize that even if we're vegetarian and we're eating only bananas, and like some people go into the raw food diet, even if I'm just eating very, very simple, it's still sinful because I need to kill. So as soon as I kill a plant, the animal, or whoever I need to kill, it's the same problem. I'm committing sinful activities. So the next thing is like, okay, well, if I have to kill an animal or a plant to eat, I can choose to do the least harm. So I'm not going to kill the animal because I can see the animal is doing this tremendous cry and blood is coming out, and it's horrible. Instead of with a plant, there's no so much drama, it's much less pain inflicted. And many plants, in fact, they don't even die when they give some fruits and like that. So when we choose to be a saintly person, and this verse is the word is santa, santo, the word in Sanskrit, in Spanish santo. This is mean a saintly person who's friendly to all living entities. When we choose the path of a godly life, a saintly life, then we will choose to make the least harm. So the least harm means no meat eating. We're not going to kill an animal and see him bleed and all that stuff. So we choose the plants and the cow milk and things that are obtained in a peaceful way without like blood and all that. So then the next step is, okay, we recognize that it is still sinful. Even if I take the raw food diet, it's still sinful. So then the next step is, I will offer it to God with love and devotion. And this is what devotees do in the performance of yajna. This is not so well understood in the West, because this is more like an Indian thing, this yajna, offering grains, for example. There's a fire sacrifice. In India there's a ceremony where there's a pit, a square pit, and then there's several priests who sit around it. And then they start a fire and invoke the Lord to be present there. And as the ceremony proceeds, there's offerings of grains, food grains especially, rice or certain kinds of barley and lentils, or different types of grains, and these are offered symbolically to the Lord, who is invoked into the fire. So this process of yajna is very common in India. In the West, there's no such thing, so it might be a little alien. But in simple terms, instead of preparing the food for our own enjoyment, that I'm going to prepare this, is very delicious so that I can eat, we prepare the food so that God can enjoy. And then that is called sacrifice. When God enjoys, we get the remnants or the results of that sacrifice. And then we eat that. And that is considered prasadam, or it's considered freed from sinful reactions, and it is transcendental, or it becomes spiritualized when we offer the food like that. So the core definition of sin that applies to this verse is, if you do something just for your own pleasure without considering God whatsoever in your activities, just to enjoy, that is sinful. And if you think about this, then almost everything that is done in the West is sinful. Because the concept of doing things for God is almost gone. Almost is not there. So this the so-called human life, or these people that we see with human bodies that never ever do anything for God, they're more like animals because they're just worried of eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So that is a sinful life, because if you have a human body, you have human brain, you can think of higher things, but you only use your body to eat, sleep, and like that. Never dedicate your life to God in any way, well, that is sinful. You're not using your body according to its full potential. And that means next life, one will have to come back as animal or another human being and just repeat that cycle over and over again. That is called samsara, the cycle of birth and death. We don't want that because nobody wants to get old and get sick and die, and all these things are horrible. So to get out of this cycle of samsara, we perform activities which are karma free, which is sinless activities. And this is what bhakti, or pure love of God, the practice of pure love of God, is about. To do all our activities for the pleasure of God. Then when God is satisfied, then He will give our results of that sacrifice, and we will also be very happy. And if Krishna is happy, then everyone is happy. It's like you make the boss happy, then everyone in the company is happy. But if the boss is unhappy, then you can do your work as best as you can, but you're going to get chastised. Your boss is going to be like, you didn't do this or that. It's always going to be a problem. Typical with a boss. So think about this sin and define this word very clearly in your mind, because if you don't understand what sin is, then you will commit one after another sin even without knowing. Just like anyone I meet here in the West, they will think that eating something that I enjoy a lot is normal. Everybody does it. What's the problem? I don't need to offer to anyone or do any kind of sacrifice. But that is sinful. That's the problem. And that is also the same thing that applies with sex life. Because so many people think that, well, what's the problem? God made me a man and a woman, and we're supposed to enjoy. God gave us all these senses so that we can enjoy. Well, this is the same core problem. That if I do stuff just so that I can enjoy, then that is sinful. It's just sinful. Because it's not, anything that exists is not for your enjoyment. It's for the enjoyment of God. Now, this might seem a little bit extreme for most people, but if you live your life according to these principles, even for 2 weeks or a month, in a short period, you will notice that you actually experience happiness, and that you actually raise yourself to a higher state of mind where you can see that, wow, why was I doing that? Now that I taste these food objects offered to the Lord, now it tastes so much better. And now that I am free from this idea of the enjoyment of sex life, now I am more peaceful. I experience life in a totally different way. Now, people consider someone very advanced if he can get a very beautiful woman and enjoy his sex life, but it's such a huge endeavor just to do that. To get this beautiful woman, one has to spend huge amounts of money and then lose huge amounts of blood by discharging semen, and it's just like such a waste of energy, and it's all sinful. It's just like, wow. So Vedic knowledge is very valuable, because if you know what will liberate you from this cycle of sin, then you can actually get out. And this is like a relief for the soul that, finally I can get out of this. This is horrible. And this is the essence of the Vedic way. Practice pure love of God, offer everything to God, chant the name of God, do everything with God in mind, with the goal of pleasing God. And then automatically all your troubles, all your worries, all sins will disappear. And this is Krishna's promise. If you try this process with this kind of mindset, you will experience a complete change in your life. It takes effort, yes, and most people, they can't quit sinful activity. Oh well, that's a problem. But if one goes gradually, step by step, removing sinful activities one at a time, eventually one gets purified and one gets a taste for higher things. That is the essence, again, of the Vedic way. If you have any comments or questions, please post them below or visit our website, thevedikway.org. Thank you. Hare.